Welcome, fellow stargazers. Congratulations, you've taken another step towards the realization.
Just the other day, I was watching a documentary on Lord Vishnu when I first got the idea of making this video. Vishnu has been described as the controller of the multiverse. He is the one who maintains order in all universes. Keep that in mind as we begin a rather unconventional video. Quick disclaimer, this video is going to be a lot different than the ones I have posted so far. And you'll know what I mean as we proceed through its length. The reason for this is that unlike the other videos, this one is more or less based on my own thought process and not just simple facts. So, with the risk of not making any sense at all, here's me pouring a fraction of my mind before you. Now, we are going to talk about a lot of seemingly random stuff and then connect it all along the way. So, try to keep a track of what we're talking of here. Let's start with something relatively simple. There is this phenomena that occurs all around us, which I happened to observe the other day, and I'm sure a lot of you have also observed the same. It's the serial repetition of patterns at different levels in nature. These patterns can either be very precise in mathematics, like spiral patterns observed in a cyclone, and also a galaxy. Two different levels reflecting the same pattern. Otherwise, these patterns can be abstract and broad, like how cells thrive when they work together, so do ants, and so do humans. Different levels of magnitude, same core pattern. A very basic explanation for these patterns is that the mathematics operating at the very basic level is same for all of them. Or in some cases, it's just our pattern-friendly brain finding patterns where they don't exist. However, some part of me finds this explanation boring. So, let's spice things up a little bit and talk about the information stored inside of us in the form of DNA. Think of a cell. How did it manage to survive? At first, a cell was formed in a puddle, in a group of other cells. It sustained itself by feeding on the other cells. Then a bunch of them got together to form a tissue, then organs, then their systems, finally constituting an organism. Now if we go by the phenomenon of pattern repetition, we can draw the parallels of that with the human society. At first, there were cavemen who lived by hunting and feeding on other animals. Then a bunch of them formed groups, then colonies, then kingdoms, and then empires or nations. Humans, despite being so complex, follow the same pattern as a cell because that information of going from simple to complex formations was never destroyed throughout evolution. It was passed down using DNA. And remember, the cells we are made of today are descendants of those primitive cells that originally followed the pattern. So we were more or less bound to reflect the pattern on a much bigger scale. Now, think about this. Those primitive cells survived by feeding on other cells. If eating other organisms is what's been inside our DNA, then it fairly quickly explains why we rely on destruction to get things done. Because that's what our entire evolution is based on. Violence. We need energy to survive. And food is the ultimate source of energy for us. And up until agriculture wasn't a thing, the only way to get that food was to kill another organism and eat them. Emotions like violence and greed have been the driving force of the evolution that has taken place on Earth. If you think about it, it's not just humans. Every organism is in one way or another surviving because of violence and greed. Even emotions of love and care are in a way reflective of the greed of the continuation of a species. However, violence and greed aren't the only emotions we feel, right? There's an entire range of emotions we feel on a daily basis. And sure enough, it also applies to other animals. The more complex the organism, the more emotions they can feel. Let's summarize. So we are complex organisms that can feel a whole range of emotions, but a few of them have played a more significant role than the others in our survival and evolution. But the existence of all the other emotions also opens a possibility. Hypothetically, there could be an entire alien species somewhere in the universe that has evolved to reflect an entirely different emotion. So, just like how we are a violence-based species, there could be a love-based alien species, or a species based on apathy, disgust, envy, or other emotions. All of this means one thing: more than one type of evolution is possible. We went through a violence-based evolution. Other possible advanced civilizations could have gone through evolutions based on other emotions. It might even be possible that there are species which have evolved to reflect emotions that our human senses cannot even feel. Keep this final point in mind, because we will get back to it in a while. But for the time being, let's get deeper. This phenomenon of the macrocosm reflecting the microcosm isn't just limited to living things. It can be observed in non-living systems too. An example on top of my head is the solar system reflecting the orbits of an atom, even though the fundamental physics operating at both these levels is completely different. Gravity also makes eerily similar patterns at different levels. A satellite orbits a planet, which orbits a star, which orbits a galactic center. How then does that work? Here again, we come to the concept of information. The information we're talking of now is related to the very existence of things. And this is more than just an abstract concept. Everything in the universe, at the very basic level, is information. This information basically dictates the existence and fundamental properties of subatomic particles. Much like how living systems are made of cells which contain information in form of DNA, non-living systems are made of atoms, which consist of this information at the fundamental level. And much like how DNA passes on information from simple to complex levels, atoms too bind and form new molecules, thus passing on this fundamental information at higher levels of complexity. Alright, I hope you're still with me. Now think about this. Every atom is made of information at the fundamental level, and all the carbon-based cellular forms of life we've been talking of until now are also atoms at the very basic level. Which basically means that all of us, living beings of Earth, share the same set of information at the fundamental level. Maybe such ideas were what gave birth to the Advaita philosophy. This is a branch of philosophy which states that there exists a higher cosmic power called Shiv, and all of us are just its fragments, finding our way to him in our human form. However, sharing of a common core information also suggests one possibility. We talked of how a lot of advanced species can hypothetically go through different types of evolution and evolve to reflect different emotions. However, if all these species share the same root information, it also implies that every emotion there is also has a root emotion, an absolute state of self, where you experience everything and nothing at the same time. That's the kind of state one ultimately strives to achieve through meditation. You know what that also implies? It implies that since we are sophisticated versions of the fundamental information present in the universe, we might start to understand the universe if we start to understand ourselves. Maybe that's why meditation, despite scientifically being a self-improvement, has been philosophically called becoming one with the universe. Now notice another thing. I mentioned how there could be an absolute state of self, but we also equated the self to the universe based on the fact that both are made from the same fundamental information. So just like how there could be an absolute state of self, there might as well be an absolute state of the universe. Could this be pointing towards the super dense entity the universe was before the Big Bang? Or this may also be referring to the theory of everything that physicists are trying to develop to unify general relativity and quantum physics. Now let's talk about emotions again. We discussed how the emotions our senses can perceive might be connected to the very fundamental information of the universe. And I also briefly mentioned how some alien species may be able to feel emotions that us humans cannot feel, and vice versa. This poses another possibility. We as individual species cannot understand everything about the universe because we can't experience every emotion there is. Let me explain. The universe is information at the fundamental level. We've already talked of the absolute state of self and of the universe, which explains how this fundamental information acted as the root for the eventual evolution of both the self, aka emotions, and the universe. Now, every civilization has evolved using a particular set of emotions. So they've also evolved to understand only that component of the universe which is made of the same root information that also acted as the root for the emotions they can experience. We can't understand any component of the universe that has formed from a root information that doesn't form any of our emotions, because our senses simply have not evolved to understand that information. While this is a scary possibility, this also means that for us to understand the universe, all species must come together to do their part, which again is reflective of the organ system organization in a living system, which further reflects the pattern repetition that we started the video with. I'm sorry, but after stating this, I cannot help but ask, is the universe also alive? Well, clearly not the kind of alive we're used to, but still alive in the sense that it is a complex entity integrated together by an internal force of gravity, and all of its units, which are species in this case, need to work together in order to sustain or understand it. And if the multiverse is a real thing too, then it's very possible that this living universe, much like a living organism, also interacts with other universes in some way, ways which we don't understand. For all we know, the multiverse might just be a big puddle, with our universe being that cell that one day came into existence. And if that is true, then the organism that would ultimately be formed by these cells of such magnitude would be none other than Vishnu himself. And until next time, cheers, brilliance.